The constructive system is what we have now. Constructive means something that's built, made, manufactured. So for example, legislation is constructive because it's authored. That gives them, anybody who's under the legislation, then they have authority over because they authored it. Whereas the innate, the substantive, it's not authored, so there's no authority. What you have is, you have reciprocal obligations and responsibilities that are innate. This is what torts are. Torts would be like murder, theft, rape. These are things that cause mental distress or trespass. So the substantive is something that doesn't need legislation because it's innate. What we have with constructive is they don't legislate the innate. So for example, they won't need a statute for murder because it's a tort. They need a statute for speeding or parking illegally because it's a constructive fiction. It's not a crime, if you like. It's just something that's against policy. So what you want is to get rid of that, because if it's constructive, it requires the threat of violence and fear for it to maintain. All hierarchy does.
You mean like bailiffs coming around?
That's right. So you have the police, the military. They're there not for your protection, but for your enslavement. They want to impose violence and fear, the threat of violence and fear, so that you then establish licenses, regulations. You're subject to the rules and the policy of the authority, the author of these nonsenses. This is the psychopathic model, the hierarchical model, where they impose so that they can then steal, extort and subjugate people to their dictates. So what you've got with the substantive is what would naturally exist if you removed the fear and violence and the hierarchy disappeared, because it's the only way that hierarchy can exist is through fear and violence, if it's a subjugating power. If you for example didn't pay your council tax and they want everybody to pay the council tax, they'll make an example. So they'll crucify you, they'll take you through the courts, they'll put it on the news, they'll put it in the newspapers, and they'll make an example. They couldn't do that to 1 million people, but the fear and the threat of violence and fear that's generated from that one example then forces the other 1 million people to then pay the council tax because they fear the same thing happening to them. Even though it's impossible, if 1 million people didn't pay the council tax, for it to happen to 1 million people. It's the fear and violence, the threat of violence. So they only have to do it to a small number. Say 100 people out of 1 million, which is, and then they can force the rest of the people through fear and violence to submit to whatever, for example, bedroom tax or whatever nonsense they invent to subjugate the population.